All right, hi everybody. Thanks for watching our workshop, and we decided to do our workshop presentation on postpartum sleep deprivation. And the members of our group were Haley Gracia, Madison Morley, and Jared Moser. You can go to the next slide. I'm going to be talking a little bit about exactly what postpartum sleep deprivation is and how many people this actually affects. And all new mothers experience some sleep loss following childbirth as their estrogen and progesterone hormone levels plunge. They typically spend 20% more of the day awake than average during the first 6 weeks postpartum. And postpartum women wake more frequently and have less dream sleep than non-postpartum women. Normally, women in their first month postpartum spend only 81% of their time in bed actually sleeping. And neurotransmitters that influence sleep quality also affect mood, raising sleep-deprived mothers' risk for depression. And sleep deprivation can hamper a mother's ability to care for her infant, as judgment and concentration decline. Sleep-deprived mothers also may inevitably compromise their infant's sleep quality because infants often adopt their mother's circadian sleep rhythms. And the National Sleep Foundation found that 76% of parents have frequent sleep problems. And I'm sure that all of you that are parents can relate to this as well, have had to run on little sleep, making life a lot more complicated. And an infant's sleep patterns are nothing like their mother's. First, an infant's sleep includes a higher percentage of REM sleep. At 3 months, your newborn spends 50 to 80% of sleep time in the REM stage, compared with your 20%. And second, his sleep cycle runs approximately 50 minutes, yours 90. So all this means that your newborn will wake up easily and sleep for shorter periods. These periods usually only last no more than 3 to 4 hours, and your infant will also maintain their light disordered pattern around the clock. And so during the night and during the day, it'll all be different. And of course, if your baby's awake, so are you, which means you're on call throughout the night to feed and comfort them. This type of sleep deprivation, typical of parents of newborns, or over the course of 8 hours, you're up 2 or 3 times for 20 minutes or longer, is even more grueling than getting just 5 hours of straight sleep. This is the case because sleep fragmentation causes a significant decrease in your deep sleep. And that's because each time you get up and then go back to bed, you have to start the sleep cycle all over again, entering the light stages before you return to deep sleep. The result that can come from this is exhaustion. And according to the National Sleep Foundation, the average adult needs 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. And when you only get a couple hours a night on an ongoing basis, you build up a sleep debt that can be hard to pay back. And if your sleep debt continues over a long period of time, your health can start to suffer, and it will pay a big toll on your body. And so weeks after weeks of this sleep deprivation, you can really start to feel a change and have a hard time just doing basic things that normally wouldn't be too tough. And for many moms, sleep debt actually begins in pregnancy, when sleep needs may increase, but discomfort and frequent trips to the bathroom interfere with a full night's sleep. But by far, the biggest change happens in the immediate postpartum period. And one study found that in the first week of a baby's life, compared with that of late pregnancy, moms got 1.5 hours of less sleep, fragmented into 3 times more sleep episodes per day. And so they're getting a lot less sleep, and this sleep was spread out throughout the day instead of one big period in the night. And the early postpartum period is also characterized by lots of day-to-day variability in sleep. Sleeping with a new baby means unpredictability, with little to no control whether tonight will be a good night or a bad one. And the sleep debt can continue to build and may cause a lot of problems for parents trying to raise their little one. One study found that 2 weeks of 6 hours of sleep per night caused declines in many cognitive measures, similar to those found after a full 24 to 48 hours of sleep deprivation. And perhaps more concerning is that the 6-hour sleepers had no idea how impaired they were. They rated their sleepiness as only mild, but their test performance showed otherwise. And so when we continue to get a little sleep each night, we don't really realize what's happening to us, and it's so slow that we soon are facing big problems with sleep deprivation. We don't even know it. And another study found that cognitive performance of people who had been awake for 18 to 19 hours was comparable to those with a blood alcohol content of 0.10, and the legal limit in the United States to drive is 0.08. So this shows it can cause a lot of harm and be dangerous as well to the mother and also to all the family. And this shows that sleep deprivation is not only a concern for mental health, but is also a big concern for overall physical well-being as well. Not getting enough sleep greatly increases the risk that a mother will begin to have postpartum depression. And the problem is when a mother has postpartum depression, this causes them to have a harder and harder time trying to sleep, which can cause their depression to become more severe. And this can be a devastating cycle, and without proper treatment, can continue to get worse and worse. And for this reason, it is so important to watch for signs of sleep deprivation and take the steps needed to control this problem and get the most rest that you can in the circumstances that you are in. So if the problem continues, it's just going to get worse and worse, and you could possibly enter into depression, and in that depression it's going to be almost impossible to get any sleep. So it's so important to watch for the signs and take the precautions necessary and try to avoid as much as you can. And you can go to the next slide.
Okay, so there are a couple signs, or there's a lot of signs and symptoms that are associated with sleep or postpartum sleep deprivation. At first, the person suffering from this will start to feel tired, just the normal signs of maybe missing 1 or 2 nights of good sleep. Eventually, it'll just go from tiredness to something they call micro-sleeping, and that's where you fall asleep for maybe a few seconds, maybe a few minutes, but you don't realize that you're falling asleep. You just fall asleep and don't realize it until you wake up. And that can actually be very dangerous because that can happen anytime. It's your body's way of saying, no, you need to sleep, and it shuts down for you. It doesn't really give you a choice. So even if you're driving, even if you're trying to stay awake and focus, your body could just decide that it's going to sleep and you can fall asleep while you're driving. This can also happen while the mother is feeding her baby or holding her baby, and she'll fall asleep and not realize it, and she could drop her baby without even realizing that she's sleeping until she wakes up and realizes what happens. Once that stage has passed, then she can start to feel some emotional symptoms, and these include depression, irritability, anxiety, along with the tiredness will stay. She'll still feel tired. Depression, it was covered just a little bit earlier, but with postpartum sleep deprivation, it either causes depression, or it can, if they already have depression, it can make it worse. So they're going to feel more depressed, which will make treatment harder. Irritability, that's just a normal symptom of tiredness. They're going to have a hard time controlling their temper. They're going to be more anxious, especially about their baby. They're not going to focus so much on themselves, but they'll focus a lot on their baby, and they're going to think that there's something wrong with their baby when maybe there's not anything wrong. They can't think clearly, so they're more worried than what's reasonable. So once the irritability and depression and anxiety and tiredness and microsleeping come, then they can start having more serious problems. And these include things like impaired decision-making, forgetfulness, longer reaction times, lack of coordination, a poor perception of reality, high blood pressure, hallucinations, and even heart attacks. And the heart attacks are more linked with the anxiety combined with sleep deprivation. So if a mother has gone weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks without having a lot of sleep, and she's past the emotional symptoms, she'll notice that she's not reacting to her baby as fast. She's not able to pick up a falling bottle as fast as she used to. She'll not be able to think as clearly. She'll be thinking that like I mentioned earlier, that something's wrong, and then she won't sleep even more because she's worried about it. She'll start to hallucinate and think something's out to get her, even though she's totally fine. But in her head is telling her that something's wrong, that someone's out to get her, that that something's going to happen to her baby, or something's going to happen to another family member, when in reality everything's okay, but she's so tired that she can't tell her brain that she's okay and that her family's okay. The high blood pressure and the heart attack are very rare signs and symptoms, but they can happen if it goes on for months without any treatment, without anyone realizing what's going on and making her get more sleep. A few other ones are severe yawning. That one won't cause a lot of damage to the person, but it's another sign to look out for. So if you see some young mother who's yawning a lot, that's maybe a sign to say maybe they should go get some more sleep. Maybe I should take the baby for a few hours so you can go get some more sleep. Similar symptoms to ADHD is another sign and symptom. Their body will try to make up for the lack of energy, but it won't work as well, so that's why they'll start to have the ADHD symptoms. They'll also be more prone to sicknesses because their body is focused on trying to give them energy rather than focusing on fighting off bacteria and viruses, so they're going to get sick more often. They'll also have a risk of type 2 diabetes.
Okay, so the only way to really treat sleep deprivation is sleep. So the first thing that you want to do is make sleep a priority. If you want to be a happy, healthy mom or dad, you need sleep too. Parents know that sleep is a priority, but often they don't make it one. When we have a few free minutes to sleep, that's not the number one thing that comes to our mind. You know, we want a few minutes to ourselves, or to do the laundry or the dishes, whatever it may be, homework. It's really important to make sleep a priority. The next one, everyone says it when you come home with a baby, but sleep when the baby sleeps. I can't stress how important that is to do. As you can see on the diagram to the right, it says between the newborn and 2 months that the baby is going to sleep between 16 to 18 hours in a day. Nighttime sleep being 8 to 9 hours, and naps 7 to 9 hours with 3 to 5 naps in there. So that's an opportunity to get 16 to 18 hours of sleep if you just sleep when the baby sleeps. That's more than enough sleep. You probably don't need that much sleep, but having a baby is really exhausting, so you really need that time to, you know, rejuvenate and rejuvenate yourself. The next one sounds kind of silly. Talk about your sleep needs with your spouse, with your family. Talk about how much sleep that you need to function in a day. With me and my husband, I need more sleep than he does. He only needs about 5 hours of sleep to function in the day, but I need 8 to 9 hours in order to really know what I'm doing the next day and know what I'm doing. So with that, you're basically asking for help, which is another hard thing for parents to really do. They want to do it all themselves. I wanted to do it all myself. I didn't want to ask for help, but you really need help. It takes a lot to raise a baby, especially in those first few weeks home. You don't know what you're really doing. It's just everything is coming at you all at once. So you can ask the grandma, grandpa, sibling, aunt, uncle, anyone to watch the baby while you get a couple hours of sleep, even if it's just 4 consecutive hours of sleep. That may be the most sleep that you have gotten since you brought the baby home. The next one is enlist the entire family. that goes along with asking for help. Parents can take turns sleeping during the night. There's a lot of different ways that you can incorporate your family as a whole to really have everybody get the sleep that they need in order to function. The last one is to learn and use strategies to improve infant sleep. So usually by 4 to 6 months, you can get the baby onto a schedule. It doesn't happen all the time. If you have a colicky baby, they're going to be more fussy, but usually by that time the baby starts getting onto a schedule, and you can get the sleep that you need. So you can ask your friends about what they have done to get their babies onto a sleep schedule. There are a lot of different books about it and different methods that you can use in order to get your baby to sleep. Websites that teach you, how to put your baby onto a schedule, even though the baby is getting less hours of sleep during those months. As the baby gets older, they're getting less and less amount of sleep. The sleep is going to be more consecutive and more they'll be sleeping through the night. So I strongly urge you to put baby on a schedule as soon as possible. Next slide.
Okay, so there's some good ways to prevent postpartum sleep. So there's some good ways to prevent postpartum sleep deprivation. The first one is to make a plan before the baby is born. Doctors are recommending that mothers get at a minimum 5 hours of uninterrupted sleep every night. That will allow them to get into some deeper sleep and feel more refreshed when they wake up. So they'll need to figure out and plan before they have the baby how they're going to get that 5-hour minimum. And that can be done, so there are a couple things that you need to figure out in order to get those 5 hours. Newborn babies generally need to eat between 2 and 4 hours, so they'll need to figure out how they're going to feed the baby while they're asleep. And that can be done through either pumping breast milk or preparing formula, depending on how they've decided to feed their baby. They also will need to make sure they find someone to care for the baby while they're asleep, whether the baby's awake or asleep. They need to have someone to be there so you don't have to worry about it. And they also need to figure out who's going to feed the baby. So if they have maybe one person watch over the baby and one person feed the baby, or have one person do both, they need someone to watch the baby for 5 hours so you don't have to worry about it and you can just get those 5 hours of sleep. So if you plan that out beforehand, then that's already in place when you have the baby, and you don't have to worry about that. You can just do what you've already planned to do. The next idea of how to prevent postpartum sleep deprivation is to get sleep before the baby is born. You can't really get sleep and have it, you can't get a full night's rest and have it count for the next couple of nights. You can't store up sleep. But if you have your baby and you're already low on sleep, then it will only get worse. So if you have your baby when you are well rested, then you're gonna have your chance of getting postpartum sleep deprivation symptoms will be a lot less. You won't have to worry about it as much. This can be hard because sleep during pregnancy can be difficult because it's uncomfortable. Some women suffer from having their sciatic nerve act up and be painful while they sleep. So that can be difficult for them to get the sleep, but it will be even harder after pregnancy because they're going to be uncomfortable and their child is going to be wanting to eat or being awake or crying. So the more sleep they get before, the less chance they'll have of having sleep deprivation symptoms after they have their baby. So they need to get it in now while they can. The last thing they need to do is to learn the warning signs of sleep deprivation. And I think it'd be important for the family members to learn as well, because like it was mentioned earlier, a lot of women will have sleep deprivation signs, but they won't feel like they'll just kind of say they're tired. They won't really admit that they're so low on sleep that they need to do something about it. So knowing and understanding the signs of sleep deprivation yourself will help you detect when you need to take more seriously. It will also allow your family members or friends or whoever else is helping you know when they need to suggest that you get more sleep, or when they need to say, oh, I'll take the baby for another hour or two, you sleep for a little bit longer. So they'll be able to correct it before it becomes a big problem. And another thing they'll need to do is, this kind of goes with the plan before the baby is born, but they'll need to make sure that they know who can help them and when they can help them. So if they do need help, they know who they can talk to, whether it's a spouse or a friend or a family member. That'll allow them to always know who they can contact and when. It'd be a good idea to write it down and what times they're available, and just so it's ready. So whenever they need it, they have that information. They can get in contact with whoever can help them. And it's important for them to remember that if they are not healthy, then the baby won't be healthy. Like it was mentioned earlier, if they get so far into sleep deprivation that they start having micro sleeps, then they could drop their baby, and then of course the baby is going to be hurt. So if they can keep themselves healthy, then they'll also be able to keep their baby healthy.